I recently read this article at CNBC website that says Vietnam will see the sharpest increase in wealth growth over the next decade. Vietnam is developing rapidly and most of the population is benefiting. These are great news for locals who are working hard to earn a living. They definitely deserve a better quality of life. But what does it mean for foreigners? Right now, Vietnam is one of the best countries to live as a foreigner, price-quality ratio. And for many people, it's the most affordable without sacrificing the quality of life. And I bet for many, they actually have a much better one in a city like Da Nang. But as the economy grows, it must become less affordable to be here. That's just what happens in every country out there. So I would say right now is the best time to come. And let me prove this to you. I will show you prices for eating out, rent, transportation prices, things to do for fun. And you'll be surprised how many things here in Da Nang you can enjoy completely for free. If you're new here, I am Olga. I am living abroad for 7 years now, and me and my husband Rene spent a year in Turkey and now in Da Nang for another year. So let's see what kind of money we are spending here on a daily basis. First, let's go and have breakfast. This place, it's really close to the beach and it's quite touristy, but still the prices here are quite low. I really like their banh mi sandwiches and it's traditional Vietnamese. And here they are only for 20 to 25,000 Vietnamese dong, which is under $1. And I've eaten here several times, and as you can see, usually the place is full, and that's a good sign. That means that food is fresh here, people come here often. And the staff, they speak a little bit of English. You can even ask for food to be not spicy. You can ask them for different kinds of fillings. I ordered the coconut and the banh mi, and the one I'm having, it's not the most photogenic, but trust me, it's delicious. And here is how other sandwiches like this can look like. They can have meat, they can have eggs, all kinds of vegetables and greens. Overall, everyone who's ever been to Vietnam, they do get addicted to this one and they keep coming back for more. We ourselves eat them a lot. And my breakfast here was 25,000 for a sandwich and 25,000 for a coconut drink. So for breakfast, I paid under $2. Next up is coffee, and Vietnam is famous for its coffee. There is a coffee shop on every corner. For example, like this one, I interviewed the owner actually for last week's video. She opened it less than a year ago, and already I see quite some customers. And it's a really cool space, and their coffee is good. And I would say overall in Da Nang you can find cute coffee shops, and they almost all of them serve really good coffee. The price in a coffee shop like this would be around 40 to 50 Vietnamese dong, sometimes more expensive, which is still under $2. And there are coffee shops that are even more expensive, and there the coffees would be for $2 to $4. But in a local place you can even get it for $1. But be prepared that locals like their coffee sweet, so usually it has either a lot of sugar or condensed milk. And if you want a more Western type of coffee like latte or cappuccino, then you have to go to a place that's a bit more expensive and will have it for 40 to 50,000 Vietnamese dong a cup. I also encourage you to try all kinds of Vietnamese coffee. They serve coconut coffee, avocado coffee, salted coffee. You really have so many choices here, it's hard to choose just one. In the coffee shops themselves, you can find a more old-style, old-school coffee shop or a more hipster and modern one. Some of them have really beautiful gardens with lots of trees and bushes and sometimes animals. If you want to go to a co-working space, it would cost you around $5 a day. And sometimes the drink is already included, sometimes it's not. There are also coffee shops with really pretty desserts. And if you have a sweet tooth, I can say that in Vietnam you will be treated very well. Also, the new kind of coffee shops pop up that have dedicated zone for photo sessions, so you basically only pay for a drink that is slightly pricier than average, and you can take as many pictures as you want. Coming to Da Nang and want to know all the best spots to eat, where to stay, rent a bike, go shopping and exchange the money? Get my guide where I'm sharing top 5 in every category and my own personal Google Maps list with almost 700 locations all over Vietnam and Da Nang already pinned. You will also get information on when is the best time to come to avoid heavy rains and how to get a visa. To make sure you will find everything you might need, I'm also giving you access to my own private Q&A chat, where you can ask me follow-up questions and connect to other like-minded travelers. Right now there are still spots available at the lowest price, and you will find the link in the description. If you don't want the Vietnamese breakfast, you can have a more Western one, like a fruit smoothie, and this one is a place that's also vegan. For a smoothie there, you pay on average 70,000 Vietnamese dong, so that's under $3. And the vegan meal there would cost about $5. And now to our more pricier breakfast option, and we do like it for a weekend to come here and enjoy the seaside. It's right on the beach. And the Western breakfast here is quite good. It's eggs, potatoes, some vegetables and fruits. On average, for a breakfast like this, you pay 200,000 Vietnamese dong for a person, which is under $8. And for us too, with the drinks, either coffees or coconut drinks, we pay around $20. And of course, I would say that it is such a privilege to just be able, on your weekend, come to this place, and for $10 a person, you can have the nice breakfast and a view like this. During the low season especially, there are not so many people, but in high season, you can find it packed. Once we were walking around with friends and looking to have lunch somewhere in the city, and we found this local place that was so full there was almost no space to sit. And the meals there were really affordable. They were 40 to 60,000 Vietnamese dong, which is about $2 to $3 a meal. And even one of the staff, he spoke English and was really eager to help. So I remember that for 4 of us, we spent, I think, under $10. This is another option for lunch. It is more hipster, I would say, and a bowl like this is a rice bowl. It can be with chicken, it can be with tofu, vegetarian option, basically with any filling that you would want. And on average, it costs from 100,000 Vietnamese dong to 150,000, which is from $4 to $6. And I must confess that during this year, we had quite some bowls over there. They are really tasty. But they don't have just the bowls, they also have all kinds of Western food like eggs on toast and pastas and some other dishes. And all of them are under $6 or $8. For dinner, let me show you first the more pricier Western options. For example, here Rene had a steak, and well, I do remember that he said it's not the best steak he ever ate, but it was still quite good, and he paid around 150,000 Vietnamese dong for this meal, which is $6. And in that evening, for us too, without alcohol, we paid 250,000 Vietnamese dong, which is $10. And that I would consider on a pricier side. Not the most expensive, but not the cheapest as well. And when we want to go out for a dinner date or to celebrate something, we like to go to this pizza place. And the best part of it is that you can sit right next to the cooks and see how they are making pizzas. And if you want to sit by the window, they have a river view. So it's a really nice place, and their pizzas are, in our opinion, they are just the best in town, but they are on the pricier side. And for dinner, without alcohol, we would pay about $20. If you want alcohol, I would say it is another $20. And when it comes to alcohol, local beers are really inexpensive. They can be $1 or $2 depending on the place. But if you're a wine lover, for example, that can be quite pricey. It can be $4 to $6 just for one glass. And that's the cheaper ones. So in general, Vietnam is a beer country, not a wine country. And again, I would say it's a privilege to be able to go out to such a nice place and to have such nice food for just $20 for a couple. Another good option, if you want Mediterranean food, you go to Mi Casa restaurant. They serve Spanish and Italian food. And I also did an interview recently with the owner. He's been here with his wife for 10 years. So a dinner there, I would say, again, under $20 a couple. Da Nang is also quite popular with Korean tourists, so naturally there will be many Korean restaurants. And once we went to a Korean BBQ with a couple of our Korean friends, How you go there is you order meat that you want, and everything else comes on the side included in the price. That night we didn't order the most expensive meat, so I think we spent about under $10 a person there. But some meats can be really pricey, so it really will depend on your taste. If you want to have dinner on the cheaper side, again, you go for Vietnamese food, for noodles, for rice, and they can be quite delicious. And each meal would cost you only about 30 to 60 Vietnamese dong, depending on where are you eating or if you have delivery or not, because for delivery you pay an extra $1. So local meal, I would say $2 to $4. You can even go to the market and there the food will be the cheapest. You can buy something for just under $1. But personally, I would say sometimes hygienic standards can be much lower there, so I would be careful if you have any stomach problems. And now to mid-priced dinners, actually this is what we eat most of the time. It is Western food, something like, for example, shawarma. Shawarma like this would cost you 60,000 Vietnamese dong, or with potatoes it would cost 80, which is around $3. I would say for Western food place it's really affordable. Or another time we went with friends for BBQ, and it was a lot of meat. And we ordered group portions, one for women, one for men. So the men had it under $10 for 3 persons, and us women, we had it a bit cheaper, maybe $8 for 3 persons. Another safe option to go for food is KFC, and there they have meals with rice, which I personally like. And for a meal like this, it's rice, chicken, and a salad, and water. And for it, I paid 80,000 Vietnamese dong. And why I say it's safe is because so far every KFC I've been to in Da Nang is very clean and well maintained. Another more Western food option to have chicken with potatoes like this, it was about $4. Or you can of course order food. This also was about $4. So in general, I would say we spent $4 to $6 a meal. But of course, if you're on a tight budget, you can go as low as $2 for one meal. Now let's go shopping, because I know that many people say that eating out in Southeast Asia is cheaper than cooking yourself. And to that I would completely agree, especially if you're eating out in local places. But I personally like to balance it out with cooking at home about 50% of the time. And in Da Nang you will find many small corner shops where you can already find meat. But we also go, for example, around once a week to a big grocery shop, and there are at least 3 of them in Da Nang. And they have everything, all the fruit, all the vegetable, everything that you need. So for something like 40 cents, you can get yourself a dragon fruit. Half of a small watermelon will cost you about $1.6. You can find sandwich bread, which again would cost you something from $1 to $2. All kinds of desserts. Local favorites, the flan, it will cost you only 10,000 Vietnamese dong, which is about 40 cents. And the baguette will cost you also only 10,000 Vietnamese dong. In a big supermarket, I like to buy flowers for the house. This one would cost me about $1.50. Big package of rice will cost you 150,000 Vietnamese dong. 10 eggs for 30,000 Vietnamese dong, about $1.2. Milk is available for about 30,000 Vietnamese dong, which is $1.2. And I do really recommend you pay attention if the milk is sweetened or not, because if you're used to plain milk, you might be surprised that sweetened is very popular here in Vietnam. You turn the package around and you see it says fresh milk, plain. If you're vegetarian, all kinds of soy milk is available. Of course, yogurt, and I personally like this one. It's plain, it's not sweetened, and it costs about 40,000 Vietnamese dong, which is $1.6. Sausages and all kinds of meat. The cheaper sausages might cost you about 40,000 Vietnamese dong, again $1.6, $1.7. Salmon is on the pricier side. You can see here the prices for a kilo. steak of this size will cost you 120,000 Vietnamese dong, about $6. One of my favorites, soy sauce, is less than $1. Frozen beef also can be quite pricey here, so the cheapest option is half a kilogram for 140,000, which is a bit less than $6. If you're a fan of kimchi, it's widely available here, about $1.50 for this package. Chicken is one of the cheapest meats that you can buy. So for example, the frozen fileto that we see here is 85,000 Vietnamese dong for a kilo, a bit more than $3 a kilo. If you're a fan of chicken feet, you can have it here. And on another floor you will find shampoo. This one goes for about $5. In general, the shampoos and things for cleaning and things like that, they are quite often imported, so they are pricier here in Vietnam, but you can find local options that are cheaper. This is a very popular snack to take home as a souvenir. It's a coconut cracker or in chocolate. This one is about $2. I like this local one, and it's also about $2. Package of spaghetti, a bit less than $2. Or you can opt out for local Vietnamese soup, pho bo, and the package can start at about 9,000 Vietnamese dong, which is less than 40 cents. All kinds of sauces, and if you're a fan of this ketchup, it will cost you 30,000 Vietnamese dong, a bit more than $1. Cooking oil, a bit more than $2. Mayonnaise, under $1, and I must warn you, it will have a sweet taste. This is the common thing in Vietnam. Imported teas might be pricier here, so this one is almost $3, and this English one is almost $5. But as I said before, Vietnam is famous for coffee, so even this one, the cheapest one, 63,000, it's under $3 for 340 grams of grounded coffee. It's very affordable in my opinion, and this is actually one of the things I do recommend taking with you as a souvenir. A pack of potato chips will cost you starting 10,000, 40 cents. But I like these Japanese ones, and they are pricier, and it's a bigger package, about $1.2. Here we see they have a special section with things you can buy as a souvenir, and you can find all kind of house appliances and gifts in this shop as well. Clothes I personally wouldn't recommend buying here because they are quite expensive for local prices in malls like this. Cheese is one of the pricier things in Southeast Asia in general. For example, this small package of Gouda cheese will already cost you $2 to $3. And of course, Vietnam is a city by the sea, so there is an abundance of all kinds of seafood, and it's quite affordable. The cheapest fish you can even find for only 40,000 Vietnamese dong per kilo, but normally the price is closer to 100,000, as you can see. So from 1.6 to about $4 a kilo. And I do recommend shopping here for house appliances if you don't want to go to the hot and humid streets, to the street market. On the street market you often also don't see the prices, and here their prices are fixed. Even a helmet you can buy here, starting at $8 a helmet. Here's alcohol. You can see that beer you can buy for a price as low as 12,000 Vietnamese dong, which is about 50 cents only. But that's of course a can. If you want it in a bottle, it will be pricier. And as I said before, wines can be quite pricey. You can find some cheaper options, like you can see here. It's under $5 to $6, which is really cheap for local prices. But don't expect it to be that great of a quality for that kind of price. Good wines, I would say that they would start at something like $15 a bottle. You can also find all kinds of Korean drinks like soju. It will cost you about $2.50 for a bottle. It's an alternative to drinking wine. And strong drinks like vodka, for example, you can find relatively affordable. Of course, imported liquor will not come cheap. So you can see this one is already more than $10. It's about, I would say, $16. Foreign imported beers in a bottle will also be pricier than the local one, and almost 5 times the local can of beer. So $2.2 for this one, and even more expensive for something like $4, as you can see. So on that day, I didn't buy too much because my main goal was to film videos for you. But I still spent about 500,000 on everything that I bought. And I must say that we usually shop in corner shops, so 2-3 times a day. And for the two of us, we spent almost all the time. It's about 500,000 Vietnamese dong, which is $20. And we buy meat and fresh fruit and vegetables, noodles. So we kind of have a balance of more Western food. Also the cheeses we buy, and we do buy local foods as well, like noodles and soy sauce and local vegetables. Every time we find that we spend around that amount of money. But if we go to a big supermarket, we can spend about $1 million to $1.5 million, which is $40-50. But that would last us for about 2 weeks, with sometimes going to a local shop as well. So if you're a single person, I would expect spending about 200,000 every time, which would make it about $8. But I would say again that we do cook ourselves about 50% of the time. An alternative to going to the shop is to go to the market. But personally, I must say I'm not a market person. I'm really bad at negotiating, at haggling. And at the market, there are almost always no price, so you have to ask for it. They have to show it to you on a calculator, and then you don't know if it's a fair price or not. So basically, I am always afraid to be treated as a tourist and given the tourist prices. And I understand that not everyone on the market will treat me like that, but it's just, you never know if you'll be tricked or not. So for me, it's just easier to go to the shop and not worry about negotiating the prices. But overall, going to the market in Vietnam, I would say it's an experience on itself, and I do recommend doing it and supporting the local farmers. The supermarket can be located quite away from where we stay. So now let's take a taxi to go back home. And usually the taxi would cost us about 50 to 70,000 to get mostly anywhere in the city, which is about only $2 to $3. And a much more affordable way to go around town, especially if you're single, it's on a bike. And there are also bike taxis, and right now I am driving in one. And for most locations around town where I go, I spend only about starting maybe 15,000 Vietnamese dong to about 25, and I think 40 was the most expensive that I had, and the price depends on the distance, of course. So most of the rides are under 60 cents, and quite a common, I would spend something like $1, so up to $2 to take this bike ride. And I personally love them because this feeling of the warm wind in your face, it just gives you this feeling of freedom, and I'm constantly pinching myself when I'm on a bike like this and driving by some popular attraction like this Dragon Bridge, for example. I'm just going about my day, going from point A to point B, and I get to sightsee, I get to be in this beautiful location. I think it's really a privilege. And there is also an option, of course, to rent your own bike, and for a day it's about 120,000 Vietnamese dong for cheaper bikes, and for bigger ones, more expensive ones, it can go up to 200,000, so still it's under $8 a day. And if you rent it monthly, it would cost you starting like 1.2 million to about $2.5 million depending on the bike, so still under $100 a month. And the fuel is also quite cheap. It can be like $10 a week or something like that. And if you're renting a bike, you have to be careful. You need to check all the damages, make a video, send it to the person you're renting it from. And in my guide, I do recommend a place where we rented a couple of times and had no problems. So when we lived further away from the city center, we did rent a bike for a month, but now we're living right in the hustle and bustle, so personally I don't see the need for a bike. We do, however, rent it daily every now and then to go on a trip, and there are so many locations around Da Nang where to go. There are mountains, there are waterfalls. Basically, you can really enjoy your day, and for a price of rental than less than $10. One thing that I would mention when renting your own bike, remember that you cannot just park anywhere. You cannot just stop somewhere and you see a parking space and you park there. Of course, if you're in the mountains or somewhere inland, it is possible. But if you're in the city, most of the places, they belong to the apartment that they are adjacent to. So if you park somewhere next to a building, probably you either have to pay someone to park there, so they take care of your bike, they watch out for it, or you have to go to that coffee shop, to that restaurant where you're parked. And if you're parking next to the beach, there are also dedicated locations, and there you can spend something about 10,000 Vietnamese dong, which is less than $50, and then someone will watch over your bike. But you cannot just park without paying that money. So now let's talk about another essential thing. It's hotel and apartment rent. And again, Da Nang is really great as it has a big variety of hotels and apartments, and for a very affordable price. For example, if you're traveling on a budget, even for $10 for 250,000 Vietnamese dong, you can already rent your own room. And for the two of us to stay in a nice hotel on a high floor with a pool, we would pay something like $20, $25, maybe up to $30 a night. If you want to have a better hotel with more amenities, maybe more space, maybe on a higher floor, then you might go to $30 to $50 for two people for a night. And if you want to stay on a beach, in a high-rise hotel, there you might go to $80 to $90 to maybe $100 a night. I would say that compared, say, to Europe or even to US, this is an extremely low price for a great hotel right on the beach. If you ever wanted to stay in a beach hotel, this is your chance. Now, what about if you're staying here longer, for a month, 2-3 months? Vietnam is really good because here you can easily find an apartment to rent just for 1 month, and then you will essentially be extending month by month. And smaller apartments, the low-rise, they quite often don't have the pool and they don't have the gym, but they will be also the most affordable. The price will start at $5 to $7 million a month, which is only $200 to $300 a month. And usually it will be either a studio or a small one-bedroom, but it will have all the essentials and it would be usually clean and nice. In low season, there can be mold problems, things to watch out for. There can be quite some issues as well. I mean, we moved 6 times during the year before we found an apartment we were satisfied with, and now we're here for 6 months without moving. And during that time, we saw quite some apartments, and some of them were better than others, some of them were pricier than others. And I would say if you're looking in a 2-bedroom, then you will be paying $400 to $500 a month, plus around $100 to $150 for the bills. It will depend on how much you use the AC. And there are basically 2 seasons in Da Nang. One is really hot when you use the AC all the time and your bill goes up. And there is a low season where it's colder and you almost don't use the AC at all. Most of the apartments come with a washing machine, so you don't have to worry about that. It's a fully equipped kitchen. There will be this and that missing, but it's really affordable to buy things if you need them. There are quite some small things to watch out for, of course, and it does come with experience. And of course, in some low-rises there is no pool, in others there is a pool. And if you're renting in a high-rise, there will for sure will be a pool on the top, but the price of that apartment will be a bit higher. So on the low end, I will summarize, expect to pay around $350, including with the bills, US dollars, and mid-range will be $500 to $600 a month. And on the higher end, you can spend up to $1,000 if you want to live in a big complex with lots of amenities. Now let's buy a SIM card, and I personally don't recommend doing it at the airport, especially if you're gonna stay in Vietnam longer, because the SIM cards put at the airport might expire after a month, because basically they are not yours. They are not in your name. They are in some local person's name. So I just got my SIM card, and for 200,000, I think it's quite a good deal still. A year ago with a different provider, I would pay 100,000 for unlimited internet. But this year, the prices are different and there is no unlimited plan as far as I know. So we took care of all the basic things, and now let's see what we can do for fun here in the name. And we have here one big shopping mall with a movie theater. So for example, you can go see a movie even in English, and some of the movies that are Asian are actually have English subtitles, and you will be able to see it. I asked the price for one of the movies that was in English, Miller's Girl, for $23.50, and they quoted me 70,000, which is about $3. And right next to the movie theater there are massage chairs, and we do come here often, and for only 20,000 Vietnamese dollars, less than $1, you get a 12-minute chair massage. Of course, you can go to a salon, and there for about 250 to about 500,000, depending on the salon, you will get a real massage for an hour. So it is about 10 to 20 US dollars. Let me know in the chat that comes with the guide if you need any recommendations. In the shopping mall, there will be some brands that you might recognize, the Western brands, and all over Southeast Asia, the Western brands are quite expensive. For example, if you want to buy clothes in a shop like this, it's a European shop. There, the prices are often 50 to maybe even 100% more expensive than in Europe. But if your body size is closer to European and body measurements, if you're taller, if you're bigger, then the Western brands, unfortunately, will be your only option. And if you go to a local market, for example, there the clothes will be pretty cheap, but the quality will also match the price, I must say. So after 1 or 2 washes, the clothes become not so good looking anymore, unfortunately. But there is also an option to have your clothes custom made. You can go to a good tailor in nearby town of Hoi An. It's also a really beautiful town to just visit. But there you can have your clothes custom made, and they will offer you one of the available designs. And one item starts usually from 500, 700,000 Vietnamese dongs. There are many attractions, and I have a separate video about it. But another thing that you can do for fun here is to visit the Asia Park. And the entrance, if you only want the wheel, will be 100,000 Vietnamese dong as of 2024, so that's $4. And if you want other attractions, you will pay double from that. Another thing to do for fun, whether you're staying here for short term or long term, is to go to one of the beach resorts. And they have an option of having a day pool pass. So basically you can use the pool and the amenities that come with the pool, and of course the beach. And you're paying not that much money compared to how much one night in that resort is costing you. So, for example, in one of the resorts we paid $250,000, $10 a person, and in another one it was double. But the pro side of it is that in the first resort you could use all of that money in the restaurant, and in the resort where it was $500,000 we could use half. It doesn't get you much in the restaurants in those resorts. They are expensive, and we ended up spending a bit more money in the restaurant. But I would say it was totally worth the price. We basically felt like we are on this luxurious holiday, and we paid for it just 10 in one place and 20 for a person in another place, 10 and 20 US dollars. So I would say if you want to have a luxury feeling and pay not that much, this is a perfect opportunity. And here we come to another thing that you can do completely for free any day that you want here in Da Nang, is to enjoy the beach. But it's not just the swimming or surfing or sunbathing. Beach actually has a very long and well-maintained promenade, something that, for example, I don't see often in Thailand. I would say that's a huge bonus of living in Da Nang. And of course, you can enjoy this promenade completely for free. And on the beach in the summer, they had several festivals like this. It was fun to see and enjoy, and they were completely free. They were part of the promotional campaign for local brands. And if you go away to the beach, closer to the river, there is also a relatively short promenade, but it was very enjoyable when we lived in that neighborhood to have walks along the river. As you can see, it's also very well maintained and again, completely free. Some of the attractions you can see for free. For example, here I found a street with street art. There was no entry fee. And another really popular attraction is, of course, the Dragon Bridge. Every weekend it's breathing fire in the evening, and many people gather there to see it. In the summertime, there was also a fireworks festival that you, again, could see completely for free. And I think it was every other weekend during the course of 1 or 2 months. So it wasn't just one evening, that there were at least 5 different evenings when you could see it from different locations in the city. And returning to the beach, another thing that you can do in the evening for free is join a group like this. It's called dork dancing. Basically, it's something similar to ecstatic dance. People just enjoying themselves and completely letting go. The participation is free, or you can play volleyball at the beach. Also, as I keep saying, it's free. You just need to gather your friends or go to a meetup, find new friends, and go together and play on the beach. Another thing I see often is a meditation group on the beach. Again, the participation is free of charge. And sometimes for holidays or other special events, there will be a carnival like this. And what I personally find great about Da Nang is that there are so many meetups. They are sometimes board games, sometimes just meetups for a chat or a beer. And of course, you have to buy a drink in the place where it's held. But the participation in the event itself is almost always free of charge. Another cool thing that we had recently in Da Nang is the full moon on the beach, and again, it's something that you can enjoy without paying anything. That's a huge benefit and a privilege of living in a beach city like Da Nang. So I think now is the perfect time to come to Da Nang. It's really easy to set up your life here, whether you're here for a couple of months, you're a digital nomad, or you want to stay here longer, or you want to retire. So far, it's really easy to stay here either on a tourist visa or start a business and get a 2-year visa with that. But don't just take my word for how easy and affordable Da Nang is. I also made interviews with other foreigners living here and doing business, and you can check it out and hear from them. What do they think about living here now? And today we are talking to a young business owner from UK who went from working in local hotels since 2015 to starting her own business in Vietnam. Why she doesn't see herself going back to UK anytime soon? And what are the costs and challenges of living in Da Nang? Let's find out.
Hello, my name is Isis. I'm from England, and this is my art space. I'm 28 years old. I've been living in Da Nang since 2015. My family is a mix from Hong Kong, Vietnam, and England. One of my grandmothers English, my other grandmother's Vietnamese, and both my grandfathers are from Hong Kong. So yeah, I've heard of Vietnam, obviously. We've never visited before. And my grandmother, who's Vietnamese, obviously left during the war. So she now lives in America, and I don't think she's ever going to come back and visit, unfortunately. But I think for me to come and live and work in Vietnam was definitely to see more of my roots in Vietnam. My grandmother definitely was upset when she found out I was moving here. Obviously, her memories from Vietnam are very different to what I've experienced.
Yeah, so a lot has changed since then.
A lot has changed, yeah. And when I saw her last, I did show her loads of photos and videos of me living in Da Nang, and yeah, she didn't really want to discuss about it. I originally came here to work in a hotel and basically never left. And now my career has ended at the hotel, and now I've opened my own business after COVID. It was definitely challenging leaving home on my own, and I came to Vietnam. I didn't know anyone here. So originally I was in England and I got a job in Da Nang. I'd never even heard of Da Nang prior to that. And I was at university studying hospitality management. And in our third year, we have to do like a placement. Most of my friends decided to stay in London and do their placement year there. And yeah, I just got this opportunity to come to Da Nang in Vietnam, and yeah, I just came basically. And it was very scary coming on my own so far away from home. I was 19 years old at the time.
That's very young.
Yeah, I was quite young. So I guess I stayed in Vietnam during COVID. My job prior to COVID was working for an events company. I absolutely loved this job. And unfortunately, because of COVID, our clients that we used to run the events for couldn't come into the country. So yeah, I basically lost that job and didn't do too much for 2 years. And I just decided that it was time for me to open my own business. I've never run a business on my own before, but I think because I had a long time to figure things out during COVID, I made a business plan and decided that Da Nang didn't really have anything like this coffee art space. So, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, arts and crafts, yeah. So I guess because of my background and my ethnicity, we used to travel to Hong Kong quite often as a child. I wasn't too shocked when I came to Vietnam. It's a beautiful place though. I think I was mainly shocked about what Da Nang was. I didn't know about it. It's a beautiful beach, the weather's lovely, and everything is so cheap in Vietnam compared back to England. So yeah, I think for all the Asian countries I've traveled to, Vietnam is definitely my favorite. I would choose to live here over most places in Asia. Sometimes I find the Vietnamese people will just say yes to everything, even though they didn't understand you, or maybe they don't really have the solution, but they'll still say yes, they can get it solved. I think that's a culture thing for sure.
Yeah, I think they're trying to help as much as they can.
For sure,
Even if they cannot help, they still try.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Sometimes it's just easier to say I really can't get that thing done, or I can maybe try and find someone else to help you, but they'll just say yes, basically.
Yeah, that's the difference in mentality.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
I think here in Vietnam, it's just not polite to say no, something like that.
For sure. Definitely very affordable to live here. Yeah, the local food's delicious as well. I would say a lot of people living here, being the foreigner expats, a lot of them have very different things they enjoy. So it's very easy to create a hub for different groups. There's a lot of creative people here. There's a lot of musicians. There's a lot of digital nomads, people in crypto and everything. It is very easy to make friends. There's just a lot of activities and meetups going on. So if you've moved here and you don't know anyone, you're gonna make friends within the first week for sure.
Yeah. I think that's one of the major things that people like so much. I mean, back home in a big city, we don't know our neighbors
right
often.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Here you step outside your room and you're already talking to someone.
Yeah. I'm personally quite organized and on time, and maybe it's my hospitality background or events background. But I do find in Vietnam, it's definitely Vietnamese time, we call it. I think maybe because the culture here is really chill and laid back, and it's really lovely. That's why I think a lot of people move here as well. But for me to be quite an organized person, if I've told my friend I'm gonna meet them at 11 o'clock and they don't come for 15-20 minutes, it stresses me out. So sometimes that happens, and it's not just Vietnamese people, it's a lot of my friends that are foreigners living here too.
I think we just adapt to it. I myself adapted for sure. Also more on time person, but yeah, here in Turkey I had it, and here too I was just chill.
Yeah.
Chill.
It is very different to what I experienced back living in England.
Get a chance to travel back in time and meet your younger self before she comes here. What's one advice you would give her? Something like that,
I would say I would like to advise my younger self to be more adventurous and more confident, I guess. I think when I first moved here, I was quite homesick and scared, and because I was, quite young, I guess. So if I could redo it all, I think I would like to come to Vietnam on my own and just be more willing to try new things, meet more people. Yeah, just be more confident and not as scared as I was, I guess.
What's your future plan? Do you plan to stay here and just grow your business, or?
I definitely would want to stay in Vietnam longer. I don't know how long that will be, but I guess I've already almost been here like 8 years. And I definitely didn't think I'd be here this long, but I guess I really love Da Nang and Vietnam. And I don't see myself going back to the UK anytime soon. My boyfriend and I live in Da Nang. I would say you could definitely live quite cheaply here. I like to eat like really local food, which is very cheap. I would say one bowl of pho might cost you like £1 in England, which is very, very cheap to get a meal. But I also like to go out and have a nice dinner with my friends and go for a cocktail. So in comparison to the UK, living very comfortably here is still very cheap, I would say, yeah. Maybe on average within a month, you could spend like comfortably between like $800 to $1,000, including your rent, or your food, or your bills. That's literally like eating takeaway every day. I don't normally cook so much at home, but I would say when we do cook at home, it's normally like more Western food, and it is quite expensive to buy groceries to cook Western food here. Like cheese is expensive, cream, yeah, I do like my pastas. If you were like making more Asian types of dishes, it is very cheap to buy groceries. But if you are buying all the Western products, it's quite expensive actually, yeah. It might be even cheaper to eat out. I would say like on average, most of my meals as like eating Western food would probably be like between 100k and 150k, which yeah, still is very cheap for like a really nice meal. And then there are really lovely restaurants here where you could spend like up to $1 million a meal, which is close to £30, which yeah, compared to England, that's still really cheap for like a really nice meal. Yeah, depending on like your budget, you could live like very cheaply, or you could splash out and still probably not spend that much money.
What would you say like expectation for like a couple?
Maybe like up to 1,500 as a couple, covering all your food, your rent, and traveling like around Da Nang here. You can rent a motorbike. It's about like $1 million a month to get like a basic motorbike. If you do have experience driving motorbikes, you could get like a bigger bike, which could probably cost a bit more, maybe 1.5 or 2 mil for like the big manual bikes. But yeah, I would definitely warn you about the roads here. It's, I mean, there are laws on the roads, but they don't really follow them. It is a bit crazy to drive here and a little bit scary at the beginning for sure, until you learn how to navigate your way on the roads in Vietnam.
Well, if a person has experience in Southeast Asia in general, they will be fine. But if they don't,
yeah,
it will be an experience.
I drive every day now, and it's been about 8 years.
What would you say is your like favorite season in Vietnam?
Oh,
which months?
I really like the heat, which is kind of weird, I think, for most people.
It is.
So I would say my favorite months are like kind of from like March, April, probably to like August. It does get really hot in the summer, sometimes up to 40 degrees. But yeah, that's my favorite. I like sitting on the beach and like being all warm.
So you sit on the beach during the daytime?
Yep. Normally I'll probably go in the morning. At lunchtime, I'd probably go inside to the aircon.
Okay.
And then like in the afternoon's quite nice.
Okay.
But I guess Da Nang personally has 2 seasons. So it'll be like hot or it'll be raining. And that's the 2 seasons of Vietnam. There's not really like an autumn and spring time. It kind of just switches like from 40 degrees and then it'll like drop to 20, between 20 and 30 during the winter. So it's still quite warm compared to back home. But when it does get cold, I really feel it. Like I'll be wearing like a jumper and a jacket and a scarf. So yeah. But this winter it's been quite warm still.
Yeah, right now it's like middle of December.
Yeah, it's December and we're wearing dresses, flip-flops. Still in my flip-flops. But my family like to visit during like March because it's like switching from winter to summer. So when my family visit, they can't really stand the heat as much as I can. So yeah, they don't ever visit in summer. It's way too hot for them. So we opened Create Art Space in March. So yeah, not a year yet, but we're getting close to that year mark.
Yeah, I think you're doing pretty good.
Thank you, yeah. So Create Art Space to me is a place where you can come and either learn different skills through art or other things. It's also like a community hub. So people come and have meetings here. There's like an English club. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's also just a coffee shop. So a lot of our regular customers come in the morning and they work on their laptop and then go for lunch. It is quite difficult to open your own business in Vietnam. And I just hired a lawyer basically to help me with everything. There's also other companies or agents in Da Nang that can also help you open a company. But Vietnam do require like some kind of proof of investment and things like that. And then also to get like your visa afterwards, a little bit tricky. Yeah, I think like since I've opened, I finally now got my like temporary residency card from it.
So yes, that's the benefit of opening a business actually. You get to stay for a year and then...
So my TRC from opening the company is 2 years now. So in 2 years, I can renew it. So you do have a longer term visa compared to some other people, yeah. Or if you come to Vietnam to work, you can also get like a working visa, which normally is about 1 or 2 years for your temporary residency card. So when I was beginning to open Create, we did a lot of construction. And then I decided that I needed to hire a Vietnamese personal assistant because I don't speak Vietnamese. It's quite challenging to communicate with suppliers and find staff. It's difficult at the beginning, but once the team was formed, it was a lot easier to get things up and running. Being brought up in England and my training for hospitality was in England, I did some work experience in hotels in London. So when I first moved to Vietnam, it was very different, my experience here. And
how would you say it's different?
I think like in England, we are like trained to be more like proactive. And, you know, if our boss has to tell us to do something, like we'd probably be in trouble. Whereas here I found like a lot of the staff, not all of them, but most of them are waiting to be told to like instructions basically. Yeah. So I think that's the main difference of the culture and the way they are trained. So when I opened Create, I tried to like implement the training I have had to my staff, just because like the area where Create is, it's like in the expat area. So instead of like them doing customer service to their Vietnamese customers, it will be mainly expats and foreigners and tourists. So training them in a different way. But I would say when I first compiled my team for the coffee shop here, one of my staff really stood out to me. And yeah, by the next month, I just asked him if he wanted to be manager of the cafe. And that really, really helped me a lot personally. And also to like move the coffee shop forward. Yeah, he implemented a lot of things and he's very proactive and yeah, really great staff member. I feel like the most difficult challenges we've had is dealing with the rain and leaking and things like that.
Yeah, during the rain season?
Yeah, so in Da Nang we have rainy season like normally from October to January, February. Some years it's totally fine, not that rainy. And some years there's like big storms and yeah, it's quite a lot of rain. My designer that I did the construction with at Create was really great and just came and fixed everything. And it's just one of those things you're not going to know about until it happens, until there's leaking within the building. Yeah. So that was all fixed. And then the next time it rained heavily, we basically had no leaking, which is great. Yeah.
We moved apartments 6 times before finding the right one. And in this video, I'm going to show it to you and share tips and tricks about what to watch out for and what kind of prices to expect. Our apartment has a gate, which most of the apartments in Vietnam don't really have, so it's really nice to actually have it. And inside there is a small garden and parking space. Street shoes you have to leave outside. Inside we have a small pool, a sitting area, a reception desk where delivery guys can leave stuff for you. This is a small kind of a shrine to honor ancestors, which is very common in Vietnam. And now we are on floor 5. So welcome to our apartment. This is it. Finally, after searching for months and months, we moved 6 times, and here we are for 6 months finally. And it's relatively easy to find an apartment. So this is the living room. Here you can already see one of the downsides, this window. I mean, I wish I could see the outside. I wish I could have more daylight, because right now it's around 3 p.m. and I have to use the lamps to show it to you, because there outside you can see the sunshine, but here it's... Let me show it to you if I switch it off. You see, this is 4 p.m. and outside the sunshine, and here is very dark. But yeah, and I must say I cleaned this up to film a bit, so the surfaces are relatively nice and neat. But because in this room there is lack of storage, like there's storage in the kitchen, but you know, no shelves, no nothing. So basically everything is always like, there are many things lying on here, and Rene is always concerned about it, and I'm just saying like, yeah, but what can I do? So we do work out a little. We have a second one. And yeah, what I would recommend to everyone in Vietnam is these couches. This one was good, but still it's dusty, so we immediately had like a sneezing problem, basically an allergy. So we bought this nice cover, and you can wash it from time to time, and it's nice, and the allergy stopped, so that was good. But again, you see lack of storage, so my bags have to be here. And I recently got a new hobby, the painting. You can see that. And yeah, the kitchen is relatively small, but it has everything you need. I mean, we've had even smaller, believe it or not, in Vietnam. For Vietnam standards, this is a relatively big one, and it has the microwave. It has the frying stove. Sometimes you can have 2 things for cooking, but here it's only 1 and it's electric. It will do. This one, this is what we bought ourselves. Sometimes they give it to you, sometimes not. It's a rice cooker, and you can basically cook anything in it. I would really recommend it here. Some of the pots and pans, they were here, and while others we had to buy. And the problem we quite often again have, the cups are only this kind of cups. No cup like this cup I bought myself, a plastic one with a handle. But yeah, I mean, that's just me complaining about the little things. If you're curious what's in our fridge, let me show you. It is a big one. We've seen smaller. Sometimes they give you smaller. So eggs, butter. Most often they sell unsalted one here, but I do like it anyway. Chocolate, bunch of cubes. We do like our soups. Some sauces, milk. You can get the oatmeal here easily. It's a bit more expensive, but you can get it here. And some sodas, all kinds of meat. And I must say, here in Vietnam, they often make them with sugar, so they do have a bit of a sweet taste. Something to get used to. I don't eat them much, but we do make it every now and then if we're lazy. And yeah, some snacks, and basically that's that. The cheese, but cheese here is expensive, but yeah, you gotta get your calcium somehow. So we do buy the cheese, but yeah, be ready that it's more expensive than at home if you're from Europe or Americas. Yeah, so not much. We do have a supermarket, a small one next to our place, so getting groceries is not a problem. The water, we do buy the bottled one. They do sell bigger bottles, but water there is filtered, and we didn't like it so much, so we decided to stick to these ones. Then this is our lunch space and workspace. It is small again. I've seen sometimes an apartment would have a bigger table. This is something to be concerned about for you if you're like 2 people. And yeah, this is small for us, and these are my notes for today's video. Yeah, but it just has to do. I mean, everything else worked for us, so we settled like this. But it's also not very expensive to buy a small table here, so that can be an option for you. Yeah, and each room has an AC, and you gotta check when you check into an apartment that it's actually working, that it's not dusty. And mine actually was just cleaned today, so you can see that it's nice and new. Now here is the bathroom, a small one with a shower. And this is the bedroom. It's a good sized one, I would say, by Vietnamese standards. Storage for your clothes and storage a bit here. So overall, the bedroom does have more storage than the living room. Of course, a big television, that's a must. And something that you might not expect, that the neighbors that are right behind this wall, they might even hear me now if they're at home. Hello, neighbors. But if you have a really, how do I say it, a neighbor who really likes to watch television till late, and if his TV is like this, and your bed is right behind this wall, then you will be listening to the television too. Every time he watches TV, he or she, whatever, you will be watching it too, basically. And even the earplugs don't help. I mean, I'm talking about it because we did have this issue in one of the previous apartments. And I've heard stories like that from other people too. So yeah, something to... And you basically cannot know. Until you move in, you don't know. So that's just something that might happen to you. Just be ready. And again, an AC in this room as well. It was getting even more dusty. I asked our landlord and she did it like right next morning. And this is the funny thing, never we see any kind of lamp in bedrooms, so it gets inconvenient. So Rene got us this small lamp. It was really inexpensive. We got it online and basically it creates something like this. Cute little thing. Something that you also must do when you are renting an apartment and you're checking it out, check the mattress. If you don't already know, in Vietnam, not only in Vietnam actually, in all over Southeast Asia, mattresses, traditional ones, are rock hard, and I mean it, like rock hard. You might like it, like good for you. We don't like it. So after such an experience, we were checking them out every time. And once there was a situation where I forgot to do it, so I went back and asked the lady who was showing us the apartment that, can I check the bed? So yeah, that was fun. And you might be wondering, or might not, but I will tell you anyway, because you need to know this. What is this little thing? So right now it is January and it's the rainy season and it gets very humid inside the apartment. So this is basically a dehumidifier. It collects the water and you can see it here. It will get almost full by the time I cannot use it anymore. So it's an essential thing. Basically you can order it online or find it in a big shop or at the market easily. Yeah. Completely recommend it, and I actually have one of these things back in the closet as well. Now let's check out the balcony. I closed it. Now let's go to this closing. So we have a washing machine right here, and we have not that much of a view here, but it is a view. It's not on the wall, which is good. Even a small plant here. And here you can see what sold us this apartment. It's a rooftop garden. Here you can come chill or have lunch or do a hobby. It is so cozy and it does make you forget all the troubles for a minute. There is a sea view and a mountain view. And it's here actually where I filmed my latest videos and showed you how beautiful Da Nang is. When it gets dark, it becomes even cozier, and for some reason, even though our apartment complex is always full and there's no room available, still people don't come upstairs very often, and I think we just get spoiled and used to this. So even us, we don't come here every single day, of course, but we do try to come on the weekend and enjoy the views. It's not everywhere where you have such an amazing sea view and city view right on top of your apartment. The price of apartment that I showed you is 7.5 million Vietnamese dong for a month, and electricity we pay around 800,000 to 1.6 million, depending on how much we use the air conditioners. And yeah, it can be difference almost double, because in low season it's cooler and you don't need the AC, but in high season we run it almost every day and definitely at night. Everything else is included in rent: cleaning once a week, water, Wi-Fi. But I do notice that rent prices are slowly going up in Da Nang, and I know my friend said hers was increased up 500,000 a month. So it's a very small increase, and the apartments are still very affordable. But it does make you see that Da Nang will be following every other country and increase the prices eventually.
My name is Rene. I'm 39 years old and I'm from the Netherlands.
So how long have you been in Vietnam?
For about 8 months now. We have been living for about a year in Turkey, and we stayed in other countries for about 1 or 2 months. Portugal, Greece, Thailand, Malaysia.
Can you tell us why did you choose Da Nang right here, right now, with all other possibilities?
Da Nang has a bit of everything, and with that I think it's the perfect place to stay for a longer period of time. It's a relatively bigger city. I think it's about 1 million. It's a big city, but actually it does feel like a smaller city, which I like more. They cater to foreigners, which makes things just a bit easier and better. You have a beach. I find that important and nice. The food, you can find all kinds of different foods, which I also find important. There's a foreign community, so it's a bit easier to make contact with people here as well. Yeah, so I think you have a bit of everything. It's easy to find apartments here, although sometimes you go apartment hunting for days on end, and in the heat. But overall, it's easy, and they are
if you compare
affordable.
It to the Netherlands.
Yeah, don't get me started about the Netherlands. Maybe another time.
There you find an apartment after a year of searching.
We have lived in quite some different apartments. At the moment we are living close to the beach. Because it's a tourist area, there are a lot of foreigners, so the area itself does also cater to foreigners, with a lot of coffee shops, a lot of food places, international cuisine, things like that. The average rent for a 1+1, you have to think about 7.5 to about 8 million a month, excluding electricity, utilities. So with utilities you should think about 9 to 10 million a month. For studios, if you are alone, then it can be quite a bit cheaper even. Then you should think about 5 to 6 million apartment rent. And for utilities, again, about 1 million to 1.5.
Yeah, that's really affordable. What's your take on a price-quality ratio?
Yeah, the price-quality ratio, I think here is one of the best in the world.
What's your approximation for the average budget, like monthly budget that you're spending together with your wife? That's me.
For 2 people, I think it is somewhere between 1,000 to 1,500 euro a month. And then I think we are living good.
Yeah, but we also don't party, for example, or don't do expensive trips. So that might be extra.
Yeah, but even parties here, I think you can do relatively on a budget. Beer, for example, it's compared to a lot of other countries, it's relatively cheap. Going out here is relatively cheap. So I think, especially if you are alone, then you can make it as cheap or as expensive as you want, more or less. You could do it on a budget of 400 to 500 euro if you want to. But if you want to splurge and everything, then it will be a bit more. There are actually a lot of things to do here in Da Nang for fun. On the rainy days, which there are some, not as much as in the Netherlands, but I mean, you know. Here there's a rainy season, and for the rainy season we like to go to indoor bowling at the Lottemart. With some friends we go play indoor pool. Summertime it's really hot outside during the day. So then you want to be inside basically to protect yourself from the heat and the sun. Also I noticed that the heat actually has a big effect on the brain.
Does it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So you cannot work on the beach all day?
No.
No, unfortunately.
People always tend to have that vision when they hear that you are working in a tropical destination or even doing something in a tropical destination. But I can assure you, most of the time people are not working on the beach.
Maybe you can tell us any kind of culture shocks that you had as a Dutchman.
Overall, I would say the traffic. I do now kinda get used to it. I almost wanted to say that I like it now, but I'm not sure if you can ever like the traffic here. It's madness. But yes, here and there there's also flow in it. But crossing the streets here is definitely a challenge. I did get quite used to it by now, but in the beginning that was quite a thing, that traffic goes around you all the time, every time.
I think you will have a reverse culture shock if you ever go home.
Most likely, yes. I think so too. It's just a whole other lifestyle that you have here. The weather, the food, the people, it's all different than what I'm used to in the West. The people here are all really friendly, welcoming, things like that. Not that we are not like that in the West, but I do think that we tend to be a bit more on ourselves in the West.
So do you in general enjoy Vietnamese food? What do you think?
Yeah, it's like a lot of, I think, Asian foods. It's usually relatively simple. It's like rice with chicken and then something. But the pho bo, for example, I really like pho ga.
I think the flavoring sets it apart.
Yeah.
The ingredients are relatively simple, but the flavoring makes it unique.
No, that's true. And overall, I do like Vietnamese food.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences? How does living in Vietnam compares to Southeast Asia and to Turkey?
Yeah, well, in Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, I think that those countries are relatively similar. Food-wise, I think Thailand has one of the better foods, but also the food in Malaysia, it's good. So there I would rank Vietnam just a little bit lower. I'm sorry, Vietnam, but that's how it is. But then again, quality, cost-wise, especially for apartments, things like that, I think Vietnam is definitely better. Community-wise, I think in all countries it should be relatively easy to find foreign communities, expats, things like that. So I think that Vietnam is, compared to the other Asian countries, it's a good choice, good option for that. Infrastructure here in Vietnam, I think, is a bit less than in Thailand and in Malaysia. But overall, it's still good, especially with the Grab app. Grab here is so affordable that it makes up for any public transport, I think. But for people who are traveling on a really, really tight budget, public transport might be a bit harder to find. But they do have sleeper buses and things like that. Well, overall, I think it's good.
I would say that even if you're on a tight budget, if we could compare, for example, Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur, their public transport is probably the same price, and it's bigger cities, so you spend more.
True. Yeah. Here in Vietnam, a friend of mine bought a motorbike to drive on, and I think he bought it for like 4.5 million, which is a really good price.
It's already second-hand, right?
That's a second-hand motorbike. Yeah, and with that you can drive around to everywhere. Gasoline here is affordable. It's like 25,000 Vietnamese dong per liter. It was a really good bike. The only thing he had in like 4 or 5 months is that once his wheel broke down and he had to fix it. But I think he fixed it for like 500,000 Vietnamese dong.
And that was in the end cheaper than renting monthly.
Personally, I would really recommend people going to Vietnam. The north has really beautiful mountains. There, for example, you have the Ha Giang Loop, you have Sapa, you have Ha Long Bay. Then the center of Vietnam, you have like Hue, Da Nang, Nha Trang. And then in the south, you have Ho Chi Minh. There you have some other places, and you have the island Phu Quoc. Which supposedly is also beautiful. Unfortunately, we did not have time to check it out this time. Maybe next time.
Nightlife in Vietnam can have many shapes and sizes, and one of the popular attractions after sunset, starting 9 p.m., is to go see dragon breathing fire and water at the Dragon Bridge. Don't be surprised to see crowds of people, both locals and tourists, and definitely watch out for your belongings, as pickpocketing does happen in Da Nang. Personally, I never felt afraid for my personal safety or heard about violence towards tourists here. So overall, I would say that it's quite safe here. Just use common sense when you're in a crowded place and don't flash out your expensive phone and put it in your backpack like I did in Hanoi once. And crowds always attract pickpockets. Just be mindful of that. Another going out option in Da Nang is joining a meetup at one of the bars. And there is a meetup literally for everyone. For example, this one was the opening of a new bar across the river and also a business startup meetup. The funny part about it is when I came there, I went by myself with a sneaky plan to film a little for this video. And then I saw that mostly it's men at the meetup, and I felt a bit intimidated as a woman by myself. So I was just looking around and saw a table where there was one man and about 4 women at the table. So basically I joined them and I asked if they are for the meetup, and it turned out that they're not. They are just here visiting from Hoi An because they know someone who works at the bar and they came to support. But it turned out a very nice crowd, and people, mostly foreigners who live here for a year or even up to 5 years. So that just goes to show that even if you're scared to go to a meetup, I would say go for it, and there will be someone who you will be fine talking to, and there's not really anything to be intimidated about. For the New Year's, we went to a rooftop bar, and there are plenty to choose from. This one even has a pool and of course an amazing view on the river, mountains and the city. This summer we also had fireworks festival in Da Nang, which was happening on the weekends for several weeks, and many locals and tourists and foreigners who stay here and live in Da Nang, we were all gathering together and watching it. And as you can see, the city never goes dark, and walking by the river in the city center is an attraction of its own. If you go to the beach, there is a selection of beach bars, and some of them have a DJ, craft beer, cocktails, BBQ, and generally the atmosphere there is quite relaxed. In a touristy neighborhood, you will find many relaxed bars and social events often happening starting Thursdays. So even if you're traveling solo, Da Nang is one of the places where it's really easy to make new friends from all over the world. Business events are happening too, although of course there are not as many as in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh. But there are some startups, marketing, crypto. There is a community for almost every interest here. Many small corner bars serving cheap beers. And this is the bar where I met my husband Rene 4 years ago. And at that time, I was living in Bangkok and went for a short holiday to Da Nang. And at one of the social events, I made a local Vietnamese friend. And a couple days later, she took me to this bar. And this bar is kind of famous for open mic nights where everyone just can grab a microphone and sing and play. So the atmosphere is quite relaxed and chill. And there was a small puppy that was so cute. Everyone was trying to pet him, and I was making a video of it as usual. And I'm just making videos all the time. So before we even got to know each other, Rene was in my video with that puppy. So we got talking, and basically the rest is history. But I also promised to talk about bar scams, and just to make it clear, I haven't heard about anyone being scammed in this bar and in Da Nang in general, not in bars like this. But I do hear that in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh, if you go to famous crowded bar streets, scams do happen. And actually, in my video about scams in Turkey, which is now the most watched on my channel with more than 500,000 views, I do talk about a very similar scam in Istanbul. But there, it's a bit different. It starts with a local man approaching you, and in Vietnam, I hear it starts with a woman that you met on a dating app or just walking along the bar street. This is quite an old scam, and it has been going on for quite some time, so which proves that it's effective to this day. So you meet a woman on a dating app or just walking along the bar street, and she really wants to go to a particular bar, and you think, well, she's a local, she knows best, and you want to be nice to her, so you do agree to go there. And there you start drinking together, the drinks keep coming, you get more drunk, and in the end the bill is huge, and sometimes it can be hundreds of US dollars. And you basically never paid attention to how much things cost in this bar in the first place, and you just trusted this girl. You might think I will just refuse to pay, but usually then the security comes and you are not left with many choices. And at that moment, you probably start understanding that this your new friend, this girl, is not really your friend, and she is not here for you. She is working for the bar, so she would make you spend a lot of money. And yes, drinking in Vietnam can be really cheap, especially if you drink just beers. But some other drinks might be pricier, and you might actually not pay attention to how much things cost. The prices might be inflated. And as I said, this kind of scam operates in many countries. This information you can take with you anywhere in the world, not just Vietnam. It's a quite common way to rip off a tourist, so scammers everywhere in the world are using a trick like that. Again, I will also repeat that in Da Nang, I haven't heard of this happening. I personally never heard anyone talking that it happened to them here. And this happens mostly to men. And what about safety for women who go out? And as a woman, I feel quite safe at night in Da Nang, but I would still recommend common sense things, like don't accept drinks if you don't see them being poured, or watch for your valuables in a crowded place, and maybe have a sober friend to watch over you so you don't end up with a guy who is trying to take advantage of you being drunk. And this advice again is not specific to Vietnam, this is just common sense for going out. So I hope I didn't scare you off from going out in Da Nang by talking about all these scams, and to me they are just common sense and things to be aware of when you go party in any city. And my personal opinion, Da Nang is one of the safer places to go out, to relax and have fun. And today we are talking to a restaurant owner in Da Nang who will tell us about his journey over the last 10 years. He started a business here when Da Nang was very different from today and there were no foreign restaurants at all. So how did he start and what challenges did he have? Would he still do it today? Let's get started.
My name is Jorge. I'm from Spain. I'm 38 years old. and I live in Da Nang. I live in Da Nang here with my wife. She's from Italy, and we have a restaurant called Mi Casa with Mediterranean food, Spanish and Italian. We came here 10 years ago with the idea of staying maybe for 1 year to experience a little bit of Asian culture. 10 years later, we are still here. I'm actually a software developer specialized in web development, but the cooking has been always one of my passions. So that's why we opened Mi Casa here in Da Nang. We've been traveling in Vietnam for 1 month to see what place could be the best spot for us to stay for a while. We've been from north to south. We've been to Hanoi. We've been to Halong Bay, Hue. We passed to Da Nang and we went to the south. And after 1 month traveling, Da Nang was the best place. It has like an amazing beach over here. The expat community is very nice, and the people are very friendly. So we decided to stay in Da Nang. When we first arrived to Da Nang, on this small restaurant, going to the beach, we were having some breakfast. And there was this lady, she wanted to open like another restaurant in the nighttime. She offered us to work there on the beginning for accommodation and food. And after 6 months, we decided to open our own restaurant. We were one of the first Western restaurants here in Da Nang. And I think that's why we were kind of successful. The idea was to open the restaurant only for a year. But once we opened, we start having customers. People really like our food and the way we do the service and we cook our food. And that's why we decided to stay until now. Well, we mostly have like homemade pasta. We have sourdough flatbread. We have tapas. We have paellas. And sometimes we play a little bit with fusion cuisine. So we mix some Vietnamese ingredients with Spanish recipes. And yeah.
And your meetups, they are quite popular. Like, last time I went, there was like no space available. It was like a crowded bar even.
Yes. It depends on the night, but with the events we are making, and we are well recognized among the expat community. It's a very lively place to come and have a beer or have some tapas, a relaxed atmosphere.
Both English speaking and the Spanish speaking.
Yeah, most of our staff speak English. In the kitchen, they also speak English. If you have any kind of request to the kitchen, like for sure we'll comply with. Well, yeah, Da Nang. When we first arrived here, all the beachfront it was full of seafood restaurant. It was almost everything under construction. In the period of maybe 3-4 years, they start building like hotels all along the beach, and now it's like all 3, 4, 5-star hotels along the beach. It's a city full of resorts now, and definitely we see like way more expats coming to live to Da Nang because of the cost of living is pretty cheap. And again, the people are very, very nice. Before coming here, I checked a little bit about how the country was working. The GDP was like the second one growing faster after China in this part of Asia. They have one of the lowest poverty rates in Southeast Asia. So we thought it would be like a very nice place to come and check. We thought that Vietnam could, we could find some job opportunities here in Vietnam. And it's true, not just job opportunities, but also if you want to start your own business, I think it would be a right place to do. Well, we definitely know how to make the foods from our own countries, right?
It's also probably relatively easy to open a business here.
10 years ago, opening a business here in Vietnam, 100% foreign owned, it was a bit easier. And now the requirements are a bit higher, but this is still doable.
But did you have to change it because the laws changed? Did you have to?
Well, we've been adapting the situation according to the law. Basically here, because the land belongs to the government, cannot own land. You can definitely have rental contracts and stuff like that, but the land always belongs to the government. You can have investments for 50 years or something like that. But you cannot actually own property. Well, own land in Vietnam. Running a business in Vietnam is not that complicated.
What would you say for your fellow Europeans? How much money do they need to stay here for a month?
Well, actually, Vietnam is a relatively cheap country, and you can have like all range of prices. You can have like a very, very cheap street food from around maybe $1.50. $2, you can have like a big bowl of pho or like rice with meat or stuff like that. And you can go definitely to other fancy restaurants where you can spend up to $50, $70 in a restaurant in a night. Accommodation is also relatively expensive compared to the average salary here in Vietnam. But for a person coming from Europe, it's still pretty cheap. I would say like monthly budget, if you go into the very, very low end, you can spend around between $500 for an okay accommodation and okay food, like street food, Vietnamese food.
But with risking a bit of food poisoning.
Well, yeah, definitely it's better if you know where you are eating because, the food security in Vietnam is something to look for, you know. I wouldn't recommend you to go to a place that looks empty. You don't know, because it's very cheap, you go there because you never know what are the processes they are using to cook this food, or most important, where that food comes from. Because probably the process in the kitchen are okay, but the food, if it has like a very weird, they come from different butcheries, it could be dangerous and you can get food poison. There was like a very big scandal few months ago about one lady poisoning 90 people.
Yeah, in Hoi An.
They went to the hospital.
Nearby the name.
In Hoi An. Yeah. But yeah, that's something you should try to avoid, and you should try to go to the most renowned places. Don't be so cheap with the food, guys. If you want to spend more on the higher end, let's say, you can spend up to $800, $900, and you will live very, very good.
That's both including the
accommodation, food. If you want to party also, you have like very, very cheap places where a beer is like less than $1 for a beer in a street food place. Or you can go to a fancy restaurant where you can spend more for cocktails, like craft cocktails and stuff like that. But I would say for $800, $900 a month, like you can live very, very good.
Well, as a single person.
For a single person.
Probably for a couple, something like $1,500.
Yeah, definitely. You wouldn't spend much because most of it goes in accommodation. For two people, maybe $1,200 could be doable, and you will live very good.
That sounds good. I can see everyone just rushing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, at the meetups, at the digital nomad meetups, I meet a lot of Europeans who are just so happy to get out of Europe.
Yeah.
To be here.
Definitely. Like Da Nang is one of the top destinations for people working remotely. Like, the quality of life is very good. The beach is very nice. You have a lot of activities going on. Very nice bars with live music. Good expat community. Sometimes we get people also from other digital nomad cities like Chiang Mai or Bali. They come to Da Nang for short periods of time.
And then they stay.
Well, and then, some people, they decide to make this as a permanent base also.
In these 10 years, how do you feel locals are treating you?
Well, actually, I think people here are very nice, feel really integrated in the society many times. For example, they don't care as much if you are a foreigner or not. I had a small motorbike accident one day, and then many people came outside to support me and to assist me. They dragged me to their home, wait for my pain to go a little bit, and definitely you feel that people are very, very helpful and they care about you. I passed in front of a wedding, and they see I'm a foreigner, and they drag me in. They make me eat, they make me drink, have like a crazy time with them without knowing them from anything, just from that time. And people are very, very welcoming.
What are the major pros and cons for you living here?
Well, definitely starting a business here is way more affordable than starting a business in Europe. So for us, that was like the biggest thing. Otherwise, we could have stayed in Vietnam or even start a restaurant like this in Spain, for example. The weather is nice most of the time. You have 8 months of summer, and then you have like a rainy season, which could be very, very wet, or it could be a bit drier. I remember, for example, on the COVID year, we had like 14 typhoons.
14?
14 tropical storms hitting Da Nang.
Yeah, wow.
And that was it was a different experience. You could see the map, like you have these websites where you can track the storms. I just see one storm hitting Da Nang, and then you see another one forming. So they were kind of queuing, and it was horrible.
How was your mental state after that?
I wouldn't say the storms affected much, but definitely the COVID was harder. But not every year is like that. Like you have some other years, like they are a bit drier. For example, this year started a bit more wet, but now it's quite dry. Temperature is nice, like not so hot.
Yeah, we're now like, it's the end of December and we don't need any coats or anything.
No, it's for me, this weather is perfect. If you have to come to Vietnam, for example, and you don't want it to be super, super hot, I would say, before September, maybe September is a good month. Or maybe March. March would be also like when the rainy season finish, and then it starts like summer kind of thing. You have like 1 month of spring where, you know, the weather is very nice and you can enjoy the night way more.
Jorge, one advice that you would give yourself 10 years ago before coming to Vietnam?
Should do some breathing exercises, you know, because sometimes the situation can become a bit difficult with all these kind of cultural differences you have. So definitely, you know, take a big breath in and realize that actually the situation is...
there are a lot of yogi people here in Da Nang, so...
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You have many opportunities to learn how to do that. But you will be putting that in practice when you have to, you know, deal with business over here.
Would you still come here if you knew everything you know now?
Yeah, 100%. I think Vietnam offers you like the environment for starting a business that not other countries they do at the moment, at least in Southeast Asia. Again, like countries around, they don't allow 100% foreign invest companies. You always have to have a local partner. And in Vietnam, if you come with the right purposes and the right money, like you can definitely start your own activity. And it's perfect for that.
And today we are talking to a solo female traveler who is a doctor and is living in Da Nang for a year as well. Is it safe for a woman to live in Da Nang, and how much money do you need? How good are the local hospitals and doctors? Let's get started.
I'm Olga. I'm a medical doctor, originally from Russia. After that, I moved first to live in Norway. I was doing my master's degree. And for the last year, I'm moving around. I'm living here in Southeast Asia. And for the last half a year, I'm living here in Da Nang, in Vietnam, working as a digital nomad.
Where else in Southeast Asia did you live?
Well, I used to live in Kuala Lumpur and in Thailand. Yeah.
So in the end, you decided to stay longer in Da Nang?
I would say that I preferred the most.
Why did you choose Vietnam out of all the Southeast Asia?
What I really like is the coastline, of course.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
And comparing to other countries in Asia, I would say that this cost and quality of life ratio, when you could have really good life here and pay not much, I would say.
So yes, quite affordable.
Yeah.
Even compared to Thailand.
Well, I would say people say different things when comparing these two countries. And some would definitely prefer Thailand. But as for me, yes, Vietnam is better. Maybe for me, it's more about food. I really prefer Vietnamese to Thai food. Yes.
Okay. What would you say, like in general, about like day-to-day living? What about Vietnam? Finding apartment, finding good places to eat, to have some fun or something like that. What's the daily life? Because you're single, right?
Yes. I would say that because we have a really great digital nomad community here, you could always find someone to ask about completely anything. So it's really very easy to find apartment or find some nice meetup to meet new people, to make friends.
So how many friends exactly did you tell us their names and text numbers?
Well, yeah, I would say that here lives mostly Russians and Koreans. Well, at least for a long time. I would say that here there are really a lot of US and Canadian citizens and Europeans. But as I see it, they are living mostly for several weeks. And just because they are just traveling around Asia.
Quite some Europeans, especially the younger ones, do that. I think the permanent residents are more older, like 40s, 50s, people who want to retire here or don't want to have the cold anymore.
It's understandable.
What would you say? Those were the advantages. Would you say there are any other really upsides to living here versus in Europe or in Russia?
Well, I would say that for those who used to live in Europe or America, for them it could be quite uncomfortable, at least for first time, sanitary issues. Yes, there is quite an amount of trash on the streets. Not everywhere, but yeah, sometimes. You could see a vinyl everywhere.
Wide range of rats. I think rats should be our friends.
Yeah. And cockroaches. When I came here, I first understand that cockroaches could be huge threats, and it's definitely not the biggest problem because they also could fly, and they fly really high, Yeah. At the same time, I would say that if you're ready to give Vietnam some time, you will definitely be used to these small issues, and after that you would really like to live here. Yeah.
What would you say, because you're a doctor, did you have any experience with local medicine, doctors and hospitals?
I used to visit several hospitals. I would say that the quality of medicine is pretty nice. So if it's not some complicated health issues, but something simple or some tropical diseases that you could catch here, doctors here are quite professional. So it's not the issue that you should be scared of.
Yeah, so sanitary conditions in hospitals were satisfactory.
Yeah, but we have antibiotics sold everywhere. So be not afraid of food poisoning. You will definitely get it, but you will be treated.
It's going to be an experience.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say, like, the major pros and cons?
So if you are thinking about just traveling around and spend here several days or weeks, it's like you really should try it. It's a very nice city. There are so many things to have a look at, so much food to try, and there are so many meetups where you could find some new people. So you definitely should try it. If speaking about living for a long time, again, you should just give a try and see how it will go. At least for me, I really like this place to live. But of course, I know several people who decided to move to Thailand or Bali, and they prefer these places more. So it's all up to you.
Yeah. So it is in the same category as Bali and Chiang Mai in Thailand.
Yeah. As I understand, it's pretty much the same as Chiang Mai, but here we have a sea,
Yeah.
So as for me, it's much better.
Some people like the mountains. Personal preference.
The solo female traveler and expat, how do you feel here in Da Nang? Do you feel safe? Do you have any major issues? Like, how is your communication with locals?
Yeah, I would say that for solo female travel, it's really safe to be here, at least in Da Nang. I've heard some stories about the capital city that some stuff was stolen, but at least here I've never heard something like that. So yes, I don't think that there is really big issues with that. It's very safe to just walk along the streets in the evenings. And people here are really very friendly, and they are very helpful. I would say that most of Vietnamese people don't speak English, but at the same time, you could always use Google Translate. It's just a couple days before is that I came to one of these Vietnamese cafe, and I would like to buy the banh mi. That is like a traditional food here. It is a sandwich, like a bun with vegetables and meat. And I asked them that I don't want meat, just like a vegetarian type. And they questioned me like several times about that like really vegetarian, no meat. And they told me that it cost only $50. And when I tried to give them more money, they were like, oh, no, it's just some vegetarian stuff. No.
So they did not charge you?
Yeah. Almost they didn't charge me at all. Just gave away for free some vegetarian stuff.
Well, it does show that people are mostly honest and don't try to rip you off all the time.
I would say there could be some, situations when you first arrived, when you're trying some food here, because I remember during my first weeks here, I came to some, again, Vietnamese cafe, and I just took the menu and just showed them that I want this one. Just show them the picture. And it was some soup with noodles and eggs and vegetables and meat. Well, it was really very good. So I was just eating that, just Googling something, reading. And then when I tried food again, I was like, okay, something is a bit wrong. What is happening? And what happened is that what I understand afterwards is that I ordered balut. It is like, it is already developed embryo of chicken, fermented one. So it already has eyes and all the bones and skin. And I was like, okay, maybe not today. Maybe I need to spend here some more time before eating something like that.
Life did not prepare me for this.
Yeah.
You just pointed on something and then, I mean, if you want a surprise, I guess you can do that.
Yeah, but for those who are scared, let's here everywhere, they are selling some cat or dogs prepared. It's not like that, at least here in Da Nang. I think that you could hardly find it if you would like to.
I never saw anything like that here. I heard stories about that it happens in the north.
In the capital?
And in the north, but never here.
You could not just walk the street and see some roasted cat.
So what would you say, again, as a single female traveler, what would be the budget to live here?
Well, I would say that first, of course, it all depends on you and what you want to do and in which places you want to live. So I would say that Vietnam is very affordable and Da Nang is even more affordable than the capitals. So, for example, for $1,000, you could have your own apartment. But I would say 1-bedroom apartment. Eat in cafes, have some occasional parties. So I would say that 1,000 is pretty enough. Maybe you will need even less. So the cost of renting apartment of 1-bedroom, I would say is something about $250 to $400 a month. Of course, you could find something cheaper if you're okay with studio, for example. And if you want to rent a house, that would be, of course, more pricey. And food here is very affordable too. I would say that it's completely the same price if you would cook by yourself or eat in cafes.
It depends on the cafe. The Western ones are more...
Maybe, but something that is Asian would be okay.
How often do you eat in Vietnamese local places? Tell us now.
Not often, I would say twice a week, maybe.
Okay. So the rest of the time you mostly eat out in Western places.
And what is very comfortable is that here we have, we could order food from cafes all around the city. And the price is very cheap too. Speaking about nightlife, we have so many bars and cafes, and again, the price is very low. Yeah.
What would you say about the transportation around here?
I don't drive my own bike because I'm a bit scared of road accidents, and because here in Vietnam it's a bit scary to drive a bike. But at the same time, again, you could just, how to say it, order a bike driver. Yeah. And it's very...
Yeah.
How much is the cost of it?
Yeah.
It's like...
sometimes less than $1.
Yeah. So I'm not driving my bike, but I don't really need it because I'm living in a place where just in a center. So the sea coast is very, very close to me. And all the cafes and nightlife is just all around me. Yeah, what I really like here is that you could get everywhere on foot, or maybe if you could just drive a bike for 5 minutes, and that's all time that you need.
Yeah, that's really convenient, and all the meetups and everything. It's usually like 5-minute walk from where you stay. So do you have any advice to your younger self before you started traveling?
I would say that I should be less scared to travel, especially in countries that we would name developing, because if you haven't been there yet, you could imagine some issues that could arise if you will come there. But in reality, here in Asia, you could find just everything, really good food, really good houses to rent. You could find friends. So I would say that just not being afraid of new experiences.